Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this event on how to negotiate with clients without cutting your margins. Whether you're joining us live or whether you're watching the recording of this event, of course, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And today I have with me uh, a friend, colleague, and an amazing expert in the field of negotiation, Daylian Cain, and we'll get to know him a bit more. I will ask Daylian to introduce himself in a moment, but before we want to know a bit more about our audience. So happy to see already the first comment in the chat. So that's the specific question that I have in mind for you is, the topic, how to negotiate with clients without cutting your margin, makes you think that maybe salespeople are the one more interested to attend. But are you working in sales? Are you working in procurement and you want to learn about some of the techniques that salespeople may use? Or maybe you're an entrepreneur, you're working in engineering, R&D, whatever, something else and you're just interested because this may be useful for your professional and personal life. So do let me know what function you're working so that this will give us a better idea about where our audience is coming from. So let's discover. There is always a bit of delay between the moment that you write down and the comments are coming, but they start to come. So yes, I am a buyer. Okay, then we have Ilya. Hi, Ilya from sales, and Cornelia from sales. Okay, fantastic. Let's see. Do we have more procurement or more sales? That's one of the key curiosity that we have. So Dagmar from procurement, but former sales. So yes, and let's have a sample of a few more person. Yes, Agnes, that is in strategic sourcing, and then we have Giovanni, procurement turned into sales, then commercial sales. So I think we have a good balance of procurement and salespeople. I think that's what we wanted to have an idea as we get started with this workshop. Fantastic. Now, before we go into the question, and by the way, one thing, this is your LinkedIn Live. So I do have some question for Daylian because I want to also pick his brain because he has an amazing expertise on the topic. But I'm sure that you also have your question, and so do not hesitate to ask question, and that will be something that we are very much keen to get. So thank you for having so many different kind of profiles into strategy and business development, category management, business development. Okay, fantastic. So great. Now, Daylian, why don't you tell us a few words about yourself?
Hey, Professor. I'm from Nova Scotia, Canadian. I live in New Haven, work at Yale, been there full time since 2007. I teach anything to do with decision making. I like to say, study why smart people do dumb things. I'm less interested in why dumb people do dumb things, although that's important. I'm just interested in why people like you and I, like, what are the mistakes that we make and how can we avoid making them? And I apply most of that in the classroom to negotiations. And we're talking about sales and negotiations mixed today. The negotiations literature is pretty well studied and pretty robust. The sales literature, not so much. It's interesting, but it's not very well researched. And so I actually bring a lot of the same science that you know as a negotiations expert to a sales audience. So if I'm teaching Volvo, I run a program for Volvo with Yale. I don't tell them how to sell cars, like they know more about that than I ever will. But I study behavioral economics and negotiations, and a lot of your people are an expert in sales, and so we kind of meet in the middle and have a discussion about their field. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, fantastic. So let's get started. The topic, how to negotiate with clients without cutting your margins. So, a good starting point to avoid cutting your margins is to have a better idea about what represents value for the other party. What
Mhm.
are you trying to figure out when you negotiate with someone?
I mean, so much, right? I would love to know their budget, but that I guess you don't. If you know their budget, you don't need my workshop. There's a lot of things to learn. Your audience and the literature, your audience already knows you got to figure out what the client wants and why. And the literature is pretty clear on this, that you have to understand their underlying interests, not just what do they want, but why do they want that? Because maybe you can satisfy their interest in a more efficient way. But let me just jump to a thing that I'm overly focused on, not because it's the most important thing, it's just low hanging fruit for a lot of you, which is what order? In other words, there's what do you want, why, in what order? By order, I mean, is this a top three, a bottom three, a need, a nice to have? Or more concretely, if you want A and B and you can't have them both, which would you pick? B? Why B? And so, which do you want the most? Which do you hate the least? And I'm constantly trying to order things in my mind, like what is the of the 6 issues, maybe 7, maybe 8, let's get as many issues on the table as possible, but then I want to know their ordering of those ideas, and the reason is because I'm trying to look for smart trades where it's valuable to one side and cheap to the other, and so I know it's easy for me, but I don't know what's easy for you, and I know we have to do a give and take, but I don't know where to win and where to lose. And so I have to figure you out a little bit. And so the ordering of things is super important. And just to give the listeners just a concrete quick example, imagine I'm selling some software and the client says, obviously I care about security and price and delivery time and start date and integration. And they list a bunch of things. A Dalian type question might be, I noticed, Julia, you mentioned security first. Is that because that's just what came to mind, or is that actually your number one priority here? And the idea is that the client might not have ordered these things out properly in their mind. They just know they want a bunch of stuff, but they haven't thought about how they would make tough choices yet because it's not a fun topic making tough choices. And so I'll just have friendly ways to help get little bits of information on how they order things. And we can talk at length why that's useful, but that's what I'm looking for. What do you want, why, and in what order?
Okay, fantastic. Now, uh, I know we had a quick discussion in the past on this topic, right? Is the idea that, yes, we want to discover a lot of things, and on the other side, people, if they will stop sharing information, if you're not reciprocating, right? If you're only asking questions and try to discover everything about the others, but you stay with the cards close to the chest, then
Yeah.
quickly the other party will stop sharing. So, what are your views on this? Yes, you want to discover the
Mm,
why, what, in what order, but then how about giving some information from your side?
yeah. A bunch of things here. You're exactly right. I mean, I think nobody likes the Spanish Inquisition, so you're not going to build a lot of rapport just hammering your clients with questions or sending them a survey. That's I so you should take turns, right? It should be a give and a take of information. And maybe you start with easy questions first. In fact, I like to have a general rule of the easy. I even tell the client, look, I have a bunch of questions for you, maybe too many questions, but I hope to make the easy questions. The first question should be easy, and they should be questions that you have no incentive to not be transparent about. In fact, any question that I ask you that makes you uncomfortable, Giuseppe, I hope you flip it and ask me, and I will answer. And you're kind of showing by example that I don't mean this to be a hard prying question. I mean these to be easy questions. So lead by example, answer your own questions, have example answers ready. This is kind of complicated, but in other words, I if I notice that I've asked you a question and you look uncomfortable, I might say, sorry, sorry, sorry. Look, here, for example, you might have said this, and see that would be appropriate for you to say this, and that wouldn't lose you leverage or hurt you. Like that's what I mean. I don't mean, when I said to the dean of Yale, I said, I don't mean to be asking for your parking spot or a privileged parking spot. I just mean like, what should I be asking for? Like, where's the web page to sign up for parking? I mean, like questions like that are easy asks, valuable to me, easy to you, and I'm just too naive to even have asked the question. In other words, in the beginning, it's very important to frame your questions as the kinds of things they should answer truthfully and transparently, and it doesn't put them at a disadvantage either because you're reciprocating or you're just I would sum it up by saying, be more revealing and more eager to get them to reveal what do you want, why, in what order, but don't talk price. Like, I'd love to know the price you'll pay for these things, but I won't ask it because it's kind of a rude question. And I won't lie about it, but I won't tell you about it. If you ask me what my budget is, I'll tell you to go pound sand. Like, I'm not telling you that, but I'm not asking you that either. And I think when I see, so I have all the Yale students right now this week filming their negotiation, and all the MBAs, and then I meet half, and Barry Nailbuff, another professor, meets the other half. So I see people, hundreds of people negotiate each year. And if I had to sum it up, I would say this: they hide information too much in the beginning. There's a sweet spot, but they hide it too much in the beginning. And at the end, when they're running out of time, they reveal too much. They don't reveal what they want and why and what order. And then they suddenly make it too much about price. And so I talk price later. Let's talk about what you want and why and in what order first.
No, wait. No, no. Building on what you said, and also recognizing that your research is about discover what the dumb things that smart people do. So you already gave us a hint with this reply, but from your experience, what do the negotiator get wrong even midway through a negotiation course, apart from
Yeah.
this example of revealing not enough at the beginning and giving away too much at the end? Do you have something else in mind?
Yeah, so I saw this question coming, and I thought a lot about it in my career, but also this morning. And I thought of three main things, but then I changed my mind on what to tell you because I thought there's things that are important mistakes, and then there's ones that you can actually like talk to people about in 2 minutes or help them with. Let me just here's it might not be the most important thing, but it's something that's easy to fix. So let me start there. I think that I cannot get students to walk away enough. And I'm not being I'm this is not hyperbole. It's my biggest failure as a professor, and I've tried each year to incentivize walking away. I once so this is like one of the top 3 mistakes, and in some sense should be easy to solve, like just walk away more, but there's some magic because I can't get people to do it, so I must be underappreciating how hard it is, and I think part of it is when I mean walk away, I don't mean like in the boxing match that is the give and take of a negotiation. I don't mean leave the fight, leave the arena, never fight again. I mean like just go back to your corner, take a break, get some coaching, get a breather. Like literally when you're negotiating, I always have a big jug of water so that when you ask me a tough question, I can take a moment and think. And so one of the things, so super practical takeaway is before you go into a client meeting, the night before, write down in your planning document, which you should have, a couple of things that will make like tripwires or triggers that you will be on the lookout for that will say, I need to take a break. If you ever feel confused, take a break. It could be you're confused because you think they're gaslighting you, or maybe they're lying to you, or maybe they're being honest and they're just being confused. And so I usually want to take a break when I get confused. I don't stay in the fight and try to figure this out in real time, but I'll leave, I don't walk out and say you're a jerk, I'm confused, I'm never coming back. I'll just say, I didn't mean to offend you, Giuseppe, with my offer. I'm confused. You're making me feel like I'm not even in the ballpark. And look, I can do better. I can do it for less, but before I start giving you a discount, help me understand like why isn't my offer even in the ballpark? Are you saying that you can get the same services for much, much less? Like from who? I'm confused. And it's not just a manipulative way to keep them talking. It's genuine. I need a break. And so smart people aren't their best in the heat of the battle. So just walk away. And when I say I'm bad at teaching this, here's what I mean. I once decided it would be smart to force my students to walk away at least once during the course. So we would meet every week, and they had to, in their survey and their homework reports, at least once during the semester, they have to click a box where they walked away and the partner verified, yeah, Dalian walked away and it wasn't sure. He came back, we got a deal, but he did walk out and I wasn't sure. Like he made me wonder. And I often say to the students, like, you don't need a Yale professor to tell you that the walk away as a threat or also just as a moment to reflect is something that you need to be doing. Like, you don't need to go to Yale to know this, but you're not doing it. So I'm going to make you do it. And before you graduate, you have to walk away in one of my silly cases, especially the one where there's no deal to be made, but I didn't tell them that. Anyway, at the end of the course, I asked them, we have 3 classes left, like, oh, not less than half of you have walked away. You gotta walk away today. Second to last class, 40% hadn't walked away. I was like, "Come on, you don't this is ungraded case, walk away." On the last day, 30% had not walked away, and I just said, like, now it's going to be weird. Now everyone's going to know you're just walking away because I made you. And yet at the end, 18% of students still hadn't walked away. And if I fail a fifth of the students, I'm in trouble, not them. And so I just gave up. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Everyone gets graded. I can't get you to walk away. And do you have any insights? How do you get Pete, how do you think about walking away and why are people so bad at it? What's so hard about walking away for a moment? What do you think? I don't know.
Yeah. And by the way, also for the audience, just in terms of understanding the terminology, now we have a talk about two different things. On one side,
Yeah.
Going for a break, taking a moment to reflect, especially consider this. If the other party came with a sophisticated kind of proposal, most likely they spend a lot of time to develop it. Why should you reply in 2 seconds to something that the other party has developed for hours or days?
Yeah.
So I guess, the fact of walking away in terms of calling a break, taking a moment to reflect, or postpone it to the next virtual meeting or whatever, it is something that should indeed, be part of your portfolio and that you should integrate all the time. And now, the other element is being clear about your button and reservation price so that you're not going to accept a deal just because you want to close a deal. And then, if what is on offer is not worth it, then of course, there is no point in trying to stay there and try to close a deal because, of course, well, maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe there is not a fit between those two companies. Maybe you're dealing with, if we go back to the topic about negotiating with clients without cutting your margins, if at the end of the day you have a client which has a realistic expectation, just looking for the cheapest price, and you are medium to high end kind of provider, then okay, let's recognize that there is no fit and you better walk away. I think, I spent most of my career in procurement, but of course, now that I'm managing CABL, I ended up being on the sales side.
Hmm.
And sometimes, I receive a RFP from potential customer that are, so much focused on price that I say, listen, if you're looking for price, probably CABL is not the right partner for you because, we want to give you a lot of value, superior knowledge, and top-notch kind of professor. And maybe, well, there's not a fit. It's better to walk away and then we don't waste everybody's time. So also, one of the elements about, you know, protecting your margin is also being shared to work with people that are aligned with you in terms yeah, what need to be delivered, right?
Yeah, I think not only should you walk away, when you're, very close or below your margins, like when you're below your reservation price, you shouldn't take the deal. But I think one of the other big mistakes that people make is they judge the offers in terms of the reservation price. In other words, I need $2,000 for this thing. You offer me 4,500. Should I pause? Well, it depends. Like, are you willing to pay 5,000? Then, like, I've gotten most of the pie. But if you're willing to pay 20,000 or 50,000, then I haven't even gotten half the pie. So I should keep pushing. Now, hard to know how much of the pie you've gotten. But what I often teach students is it's not just are you beating your margin, it's how much of the pie are you getting And if you don't even know, if you have no idea, I mean, you can be wrong about the zone of possible agreement, but if you have no sense of it, walk away. And even I saw in the comment, well, what if you're in a rush or you need to get this deal? Like, even if you only have an hour, I think at the midpoint, I'm probably planning like a 5 minute, washroom break, or I gotta open up my laptop and, can you call me back in a minute? Or when someone calls you and you're at your work, some big client, and you're not mentally prepared to take that call because you didn't know they were going to call you that day, the first thing I'll often say is, "Hey, do you mind if I just get to my office and close the door? Can I call you back in 3 minutes?" And all I'm doing is just clearing my head. Like, it's not rocket science. I just want to be my best self when I negotiate. So I need a moment. Just take a moment.
Fantastic. Now, I see that we have something from the audience, so why don't we
Great.
listen for a moment to what Regina has to tell us? Uh, any of the session is a new learning. It is about margin or a fair reach to set KPIs for both parties. Do your homework prior to the meeting, right? I
100%.
think it's more of a comment, I think, than a question in itself, right?
Yeah, I mean, lots to say there, though. I think what's interesting, what I tell my MBAs is, of course, they want to figure out the other side, but they find it, they only have an hour to do so, and it's some artificial case. So they worry that, like, in real life dealing, how much can you learn about the other side? And I say, ironically, in the real world, you have much more opportunity to learn about the other side than in this silly MBA case. Because, just to give you one example, I tell the students, I said, look, by the time you're negotiating with the final boss over your contract, almost always you've had 6 or 7 rounds of interviews at that firm, and so you can, if you're negotiating with Sally next week, you can say, "Hey, Regina, can thank you so much for recommending me to the job. I negotiate with Sally next week, but what we're going to talk we're going to talk salary, we're going to talk start date, we're going to talk signing bonus, but I don't want to ask for too much. What shouldn't I ask for? What's important to her?" And the coworkers might tell me, don't ask Sally for delay, like June 15th, don't ask her to come later. If you have a wedding, it better be your wedding, not some other wedding that you're going to. In other words, start date is really important because we're onboarding 150 people. The CEO is presenting. You better be there. In other words, that's just a silly example, but have so many points of contact along the way with that person in that organization that actually you can find out a lot about them. And I don't ask, here's a little Daylian tip. Uh, don't say, where are they flexible? That's a rude question. I mean, imagine if a panhandler came up to you on the sidewalk and said, Giuseppe, where are you flexible? Like, what are you going to do to me? Right. And so instead, I ask the flip, which is, where are they inflexible because I don't want to ask for too much? Or to put it more genuinely, I don't want to make this deal go away. And by learning where they're inflexible, I'm not saying don't ask for that, but know what you know if before you ask for anything, know, is it a big ask, a medium ask? Is it a win-win, a smart trade, a win-lose issue? Learn about what you're asking for long before you ask for it. Last thing on this, one of the most powerful things you can do is not anything I teach you, but just the simple thing, which is, think about your toughest opponent, everyone on the call, not their name, but their role. So for me, it might be like associate deans are the ones I negotiate with the most. The deans, not so much, but the associate deans. And so just go hang out with those people, not to network and smooge with Timothy because someday you have to negotiate with him. Like, oh, okay, that's not the kind of relationship building I'm talking about. Do that, but also hang out with people like Timothy that you will never ever see or never negotiate with again or before. Or, like, in other words, if you do business in Sao Paulo, find people in Rio who are similar to that person in Sao Paulo in role and responsibility, and pick their brain. Go play poker with people like the people you negotiate with, and that's how you learn about them. I mean, negotiations is learning and problem solving. So learn the problem before you go solve it. Just go meet people who know about the people you negotiate against and talk to them. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, by the way, let me quickly take another comment here. I mean, incentivization structure can create eagerness not to walk away and find a deal without undue delays. right?
Yeah.
In the sense that, yeah, there may be maybe a business need that you need to have this product because your factory needs it on the procurement side, or on the sales side because your boss asks you close the deal with Nestle no matter what, and then you have to do it, right? That's somehow
100%.
may make it more difficult, right?
Yeah. Again, but we're imagining, walking away, but not forever. Don't walk away from the deal. Don't walk away from the fight. Go back to your corner. Make the other side wonder if you're coming back. But you gotta get that deal. When you're desperate, you make the deal. That said, there's this beautiful book. I mean, I got a bunch of books. I got books I wrote, but these books are better, so go buy these. Negotiation Genius, one of my favorites. Split the Pie. Let me answer the question with the split the pie answer, which is this idea that Barry Nailbuff has come up with, which readers can without telling you the idea. Basically, imagine here's a powerful way to think about it. Imagine someone's giving you the pie, has there's a huge pie, and they're giving you a crumb, but you're desperate to get this deal done, right? Like you need to agree. In the end, you can walk away, but in the end, you're going to shake hands, and they're offering you a crumb. Here's what's interesting. Okay, yes, I agree. Sometimes you're in a vulnerable situation, you need to make that deal. But if you define the pie the way Barry does and the way I applaud, which is the unique value that we create together that we can't create apart. Now, that value may be small if you're a replaceable widget or you can find competitive services for less money, that pie shrinks. But by definition, if there's any pie at all, you still, by definition, have the power to get half of it. So here's an insight. When they're offering you a crumb, and it's take it or leave it. When you walk away, what's the choice you're facing? A crumb or nothing? And I admit to the person who made this smart question, a crumb is better than nothing. Sometimes you need that crumb to feed that family. At the same time, when you walk away, or if they walk away, if this deal doesn't get done and they've offered you a crumb or nothing, then what are they looking at? They are looking at either 99% of the pie or nothing. That's how they're viewing the world, that they get 99% of the pie or no one gets anything. Like, actually, I think they're ironically in a more vulnerable position because, ironically, when they offer you a crumb, it's easier to walk. And so I suggest that people, I don't mean never come back to the table, but you should push harder if you're not getting at least half the pie because they need you just as much as you need them. You need to feed the family, but if there's pie here, unless you shake their hands, all of it goes away for you and them. I'm not saying don't take the deal, but make sure you get at least half. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. Now, we'll take some more question from the audience in a moment. Now, uh, let's try to continue our journey. I mean, because when you meet someone, you try to convince them to come your way. What is one of your favorite questions?
Yeah. So I was asked this. I was giving a talk in New York a few days ago, and this came up, and we went around the table. And just to give you a sense of favorite questions, a lot of it, these are not my favorite, but ones that came up were like, I got to get to know the person. I want to ask them like what they're reading lately, how was their day, where are they from? Uh, and I just thought, like, that's just not in my top 10 of things when I'm doing a client call. Those are good for rapport, don't get me wrong. But let me just jump to it. One of my favorite questions to really figure someone out is I want to see the choice from their point of view. For example, here's a context. Imagine I'm trying to convince a PhD student applicant to come to Yale. I don't ask them their story. I might not even ask them their name. I'm weird like that. I'll go up to them at the recruiting party and say, "Hey, I'm happy to answer all your questions, but here's one for you. If you don't come to Yale, where are you going to go and why?" In other words, to generalize, if we can't do business together, who are you doing business with? Before I try to sell you a Volvo, who else are you looking at? And they'll say Audi. Okay, why Audi? Don't say, what do you love about Volvo? What do you hate about Audi? Like you're trying to throw a Volvo down their throat. You're trying to sell Volvo. I get that. But the way to figure that out, the way to do it nicely and properly, more curiously, is what do you like about Audi? I'm not selling you an Audi. I'm not going to give you a coupon. I'm not trying to push the competition. It's that you already know what you like and love about Audi and what's holding you back with Volvo. And rather than ask the flip, what do you like about Volvo? How do I sell you this thing? Like salespeople ask like the worst questions. For example, if we imagine the selling a Volvo example, like, do you like safety? Do you know that Volvos are safe? How'd you feel? How'd you like to save $1,000? And it's a nonsense question, right? It's a leading question. You know the answer, and you're trying to pull them your way with the question. Like I think the mental model is how do I get them to convince themselves. Whereas really, I'm trying to learn, like, how are you looking at this choice? So, in sum, I'll wrap it up as I want to know if they can't do business with me, who are they doing business with, and what do they like about them? If the price were the same, who would they go with? Why? What's so attractive about the competition? In other words, I want to learn their BATNA and why they like it.
Mhm. Now, in my case, I have a different spin, and he also works with internal stakeholders. When you're trying to, to reach an agreement and try to move things, etc. Then my favorite question would be, what will it take to?
Yeah.
What will it? So if things are not moving, if the clients, is just talking about price, whatever, etc., then you say, okay, what will it take to?
Mhm.
And then,
I,
of course, you may end up 20% lower price, the cutting margin kind of solution, or it may end up, opening up for other kind of things that
mhm.
may then enable us to find solution, or
I
with
like
an
it.
internal
And let me
stakeholder. Yeah.
let me even put a spin on that one, which is I have a version of this. It's not what's it going to take at a minimum, but what's it going to take for you to be delighted to do this. In other words, imagine I'm trying to get my wife to let me go play poker for the weekend rather than ask her the tough question, hey Jess, what's it going to take for you to let me to play poker this weekend and not go skiing? Like she doesn't like that question. I'm basically asking her, what's your reservation price? What's your BADNA? And she doesn't want to talk about that, and she advised not to. Instead, I'm saying I'm trying to get information on their targets. Like, what's an ideal deal to you? What's it going to take for you to let me avoid the ski trip this weekend, but so that you're happy to, so that you're elated to, not at a minimum. I don't want to make you minimally happy. I want you to be ecstatic about the outcome because if you're not happy with it, I won't ask in this case. So under what circumstances would you be excited to have me not join the skiing trip? And in fact, this is a real question. She got out a list. I thought she was writing me a divorce letter. She was kind of angry. She was like, "Oh, you want a list?" She started writing, but it was just a honeydew list of things to do around the house and deal done. I was like, I had to double check though. I like, are you really ecstatic? Like, I could have negotiated for more, but I thought, you know what, I want her to be happy, and if this list will make her happy, I said, I only have question. Can I subcontract the list out? In other words, do I have to get it done or do I have to do it? She goes, just get it done. Deal.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, the example about poker are not just because Daylian is an amazing poker player. So if you happen to, do you play on a platform as well, right, Daylian?
Well, I'm the biggest loser in my own home game. I'm amazing in theory, but as many smart people, I don't do what I teach. So I can help people get good at poker. I play every hand. It's fun for me. I don't fold. So I don't play like theory suggests, but some AI guys made a bot off of me called Raising Cain that they have on a poker site. So if you find it, you can play against some AI version of me. It's got the beard and the hat. It's weird, but yeah, poker is just such a fun, like negotiation, such a fun mix of economics and psychology. It's why I love both.
All right. Amazing. Now we have a quick question from Karsten. It's all about button at the end, right? To find out the button.
Um, it's. I mean, it's great if I know their BATNA. That's maybe game over for them. I just don't like it. It would be great if I could figure it out and figure out the reservation price. It's just tricky. Sometimes it's, can I get some estimate of it, right? Like, can I have some sense of what you're doing if you don't do business with me? And so if you're selling a bench, in one of my cases, they're buying and selling a bench, and they get a price, and I often ask, like, did you sellers who sold, you're like in the case, you're a handyman who's building a bench for some rich lake house owner, and how you find out your BATNA is not what's the most you would pay, what's your reservation price, what's your BATNA. They don't want to answer that. A better version of it is, look, if I can't get, if we don't get a deal here, like, what are you going to do instead? Like, do you have a bench already, or are you just going to go to Walmart? And they say, no, 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 I already have a bench. Well, what's wrong with it? Why do you need a new bench? Well, it's just shabby, it doesn't match the new table you're installing. And what you learn, it's not about, the value you're creating is not a place to sit, they already have one. The value you're creating is that it's aesthetics. They want everything to match. And so that's a different value proposition. It might change the price, it might not, but yes, I want to have some sense of what they will do without me. Exactly. It's about politely knowing more about their BATNA. 100%.
Okay, perfect. Now, back to the topic of today, the cutting margin.
Mhm.
What else can help to avoid cutting margins during the negotiation?
Well, I mean, short answer is come to the workshop you and I are doing later, and that's going to be the topic. I think, first of all, the short answer is it's not getting distracted by the non-value creating stuff. Like, like, price is important, of course, but the problem that executives have is that salespeople lean on that lever of discounts and price reduction a little too soon, and if they jump for the discount, the problem with the discount is, I mean, you got to give discounts sometimes, I get it, but discounts don't create value. If I give you a $5,000 discount, that's 5 grand to you, 5 less for me. And so we're trying to find elegant trades where I can provide you $5,000 worth of value, or maybe more, but instead of it costing me 5 grand, it costs me like 1,000. And that's the kind of give and take we're trying to do. And one of the things we teach is that, when before you, like, talk about price later, and every creative idea you have this framework of asking, is this valuable to one side and cheap to the other, or is this valuable to both sides and we're just going to fight about this? And if it's the latter, let's talk about it later, and if it's the former, let's talk about it more now. In other words, often the way you find genius value creation trades is just not spending time on the other stuff. Like, I don't know what the genius trade is when I meet you, but when we brainstorm ideas, like, you might say, "Hey, Dalian, how about profit sharing?" I'm like, "Well, you would want profit sharing, but so I don't want to give you those profits. So let's talk about profit sharing later." That doesn't create value. That just moves value around. Often, likewise, uh, how a salesperson finds excellent questions is, well, I don't know. Just don't waste time on silly questions and on genuine questions. And so, if we spend less time in the garbage, you're bound to find and have more time to find some genius. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if I build on this idea now from Daylian, found the elegant trades, is once you realize that things have different value for you, then you can make a trade. Let's say that one values price, another values contract length. Then you can say, okay, if you give me a 10% price, then I'm going to give you an extra year of contract,
Mm.
or whatever. So understanding what's one values intellectual property, and others values insurance, and then you ended up looking for things which have different value for both parties, and then you ask for something that is valuable to you, and you give away something that is less valuable, and then you make it a better deal for both parties. Now,
Yeah.
the other build on that I want to make on the point from Daylian is sometimes finding creative ideas on the spot may be difficult. So that's where you have to take the time in the preparation. Maybe you
Yeah.
know
And
that
have
there's
the
going to be a
sense
difficult
of
issue.
Yeah, and have the sense of like that's where we need a break. Like let's brainstorm 10 ideas and before we haggle over each thing, let's just put them on the board of issues to cover and then take a minute to think which one are win-wins and smart trades, which ones are more contentious. Like price is probably the most important issue a lot of the time, well, let's be real, but you don't talk about it first. It's not because it's not important, it's just because it's contentious. And so we you organize the issues in terms of what is more likely to expand the pie. If I can just say one thing, and mean that we have, we skipped the last question, but something you said I want to speak on. What something you said was interesting is like you talked about finding these smart trades and like what do you do with them. I'm I'm not sure the audience. Maybe I haven't been clear enough. Let me give you a real clear example and an insight from it. Imagine that I care about city. Like we're negotiating our headquarters and I want it to be in Toronto because I was born there, let's say. And it's worth 2000 a month to me. In addition to the millions of dollars we trade, city is a very important issue. It's worth 2000 more. And I negotiate the heck out of you and I win Toronto, but really you would have paid 20,000 a month for us to be in Vancouver. And so what's interesting is that that's an elegant trade where Vancouver is valuable to you and relatively cheap to me. But what's interesting is Vancouver is the right answer for me, not just for us, not just for the pie, but if you pay me 10 or 11 grand to go in Vancouver, I'm happy to lose Toronto. So that's what I mean by elegant trade. It's not quite a win-win or a win-lose. It's where the winner wins big and the loser loses small and can be compensated. And the insight from this is that all the good salespeople, the charismatic, persuasive people on the call, the risk that you often face when you deal with clients is you might win, you might convince them on Toronto, but you haven't figured out what the right solution is. Like Toronto, if you convince them that Toronto is the right answer, that would be a tragedy because it's not an elegant trade, right? Vancouver is the pie expanding issue, and what's important is we don't know that coming into things. I know I value Toronto, but I don't know where the right city is for us to end up. And so we each have to kind of be firm on our value goals, but flexible how we get there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, let's go very briefly. We have two quick questions, and
Sure.
then really I would like to pick your brain on AI as well, if you don't mind, Daylian.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
let's quickly take, two more questions from the audience and talk about price or cost.
Um, yeah, maybe I need more context there. I think, yeah, I talk about price or I talk about cost later last typically, but actually you're picking cost is actually an interesting way to get elegant trades. For example, you can buy they're trying to sell you a designer suit for $5,000 and you just say, "Look, I won't even haggle with you. I will pay you 5,000. So you're going to make your margin and the way I can get a good deal while you protect your margin is you have a suit over there for 20 grand that has much more expensive textile, much more expensive cloth. Sell me the upgraded cloth at cost. So therefore, you protect your margin on the deal, but I get a better margin on the suit. You still make the money you want to make, but I get a deal. In other words, sometimes a great way to make elegant trades is to introduce new issues where there's a give and take and you win on the issue, but you pay them their costs on the issue so they're not losing. Or maybe even pay them costs plus 10%. They don't, they want to they protect their main margin, but they give you some a little extra at cost. And that can be often a way that service providers can protect their margins. Don't negotiate the main service margin, just give them some extra services at cost, and that provides more value to them. Yep.
Fantastic. Let's take one more question from Rekina. Here is an hypothesis. Only unsecure salespeople run for discount.
Mm.
Goal-oriented salespeople ask open question and then take a bio break before giving their final statement.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you're right, it's a mistake. I'm not sure it's only insecurity. I think you're right, insecurity is part of it. You need to understand your value proposition before you become the low cost provider 100%. That said, I think another reason there's other reasons that price takes over. Number one, price is important. So no kidding. Number two, price is clear. What I mean is these pie expanding and these smart trades, they're not clear when I meet you. Like all I know is I want New York and I want a lot of money. I don't even know what other cities are on the table, and I certainly don't know which cities expand the pie. And so money and New York sometimes takes over, not because I'm insecure, but just because that's all I know. And so you got to get your salespeople a different framework and give them different levers to pull on, because if you're only offering one product at one price, you're forcing the negotiation to become about price. And so good sales companies will diversify. The way they satisfy price discounts is with inventory. I can give you the A plus service at the A plus price, or the A minus service, well, the A service at the A price. Maybe you don't do B plus service, but you should have different levels of service at different levels of price. And that's another way you can give price discounts while protecting your margins, because the service and value proposition is changing with price. In other words, turn the negotiation into a menu rather than a fight. Waitresses get different prices from me at the diner, but they're not negotiating away the restaurant's margin. They're deciding what is the service that I want to be provided. What's the menu? Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, um, I want to close the discussion with a topic which is in everybody's mouths, which is
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. So, uh, how can AI help us to become better at figuring out people? And how are you using AI in your classroom? Right?
Yeah. Uh, I'm going to take a moment to drink. I'm going to follow my own advice and think what. And let me ask you this before I launch it. How long do you want me? I could go for 2 minutes or 10 minutes. Give me a time and I'll fill it. How long do you
I
want me to
think
answer?
I think it's a topic that is in everybody's mind. So if you want to take 5-7 minutes, and then we
Okay.
close it. Yeah.
All right. Let me just say for 2 minutes generally, and then I'll talk for 5 minutes on negotiation. I think AI is coming in ways that we don't appreciate. Too many people are asking, will I be replaced by a robot? I think that's partially the wrong question. I think I don't care who replaces me, whether it's a robot or a person who's managing 10 robots, and the latter is more likely to replace me. I think in the next 2 years, white collars, even people with PhDs, are going to have tremendous competitive pressure from people who have armies of robots. Even if you think that the chat GPTs and you know and llama AI systems of the world are B plus students at best, imagine if your competitors have an army of B plus students and they can replicate them, and the whole army costs $20 a month. Like this is this is a crazy thing that's happening now. That said, to negotiation, I think that people, another mistake, well, I don't know if it's a mistake, but here's what I like to think of: how can I partner with AI, not what will it do for me, but what will it do with me. And so I think of AI as a co-pilot rather than a pilot. And so for negotiation, not can you negotiate for me, Mr. GPT? It's I have to negotiate this in a week. Here's help me with my prep. What are the three things I should be thinking about? Here's my answer. Tell me 10 things wrong with my answer. In other words, they can provide critical feedback on your planning. I often tell my students they got to talk to their closet. What I mean is the night before you make your giant pitch, present it out loud in your room to your closet or to your laptop or to whatever, to some inanimate object, and ask yourself, what's what might someone hate about my presentation? What are three things that where I might lose the client? Well, now that laptop can talk back to you and give critical feedback. So you know, I think you would agree, Giuseppe, that preparation is key to negotiation and sales. Not just figuring people out, but it's the stuff you do before you meet them, right? AI can be an amazing partner in your preparation. When I gave that talk in New York that I mentioned, the other day. At 5 in the morning, I woke up and I asked ChatGPT. I basically presented the basics of my talk to it, and I said, "Tell me 10 weaknesses about my talk." And then I said, "What are 3 questions that the audience might have that would really put pressure on my thesis?" The its ideas and responses were so good. They're not B plus. It was A. Its responses were so good that I showed the audiences what it hated about my talk. And then I didn't talk to I said, "Look at this slide. This is what AI hates about what we're talking about right now." And we all just stood there and read and had our jaws mouth open. It had basically predicted the good questions and had predicted questions we hadn't thought of. Yeah, AI is coming, and if you don't figure it out, your competitors will. I don't know what this means for our sons and daughters and kids, that, how do they compete with or against AI? But I think in the next 2 years, we all have to figure out how to use it better, because our competitors will be. Yeah.
Mhm. And what are you? How are you using AI in your classroom?
For I'm coming out with a Coursera course this summer. It's free. One of the big challenges with online education is pairing people up to negotiate. So we built a bot. We started building it 4 years ago and then scrapped it and used ChatGPT instead. Their bots were better, but so using AI as partners for people to practice and role play cases. The next thing, I don't want to give away the secret sauce, but I'm on the I think I'm on their advisory board. We're negotiating, but we're building stuff that it listens to. So you and Julia negotiate, and it gives you feedback on your negotiation. So that's replacing the teaching assistant. And the next thing, and I had the first programmer discussion this morning, is how do I get it to replace me? Not good for my job, but I want to figure this out before the dean does. So how can it run office hours? We already have a Yale professor using AI version of himself as office hours, and it's because I can't be at all places at once, and so I'm not using it as a replacement to me. If they want to talk to me, they talk to me. But some of them just want to, if they can talk to a B plus version of me about their private things. I mean, they're happy usually to talk job negotiations with me, but if they can have on their laptop a little version of Daylian that knows everything I teach and more. And so we're thinking about AI at all levels, on the student level, the teaching assistant level, the professor level, and then more practical to the audience. How can my students co-pilot with it and become better negotiators by working with AI at the very many stages of the negotiation? And it's I'm not selling this stuff. I got no conflict of interest here. I'm telling you, it's mind-blowing how smart it is, and it got really a lot smarter in the last few weeks. Just so you know what's coming, in the last few weeks, they've released something where you don't just type in and it gives you back words. You type in and it gives you a 60-second movie back. Doesn't find a movie, creates a movie. It's just incredible what's coming. Yeah.
Wow, amazing. And by the way, we also have introduced, in our workshops, negotiation with chatbot and things like that. So even for
Mhm.
corporate customers,
Yeah,
then
good
we
training.
offer this kind of solution. And so, yeah, that's the future that is already over there. Now, I think, I see that there are more comments and questions from the audience, but we are already 55 minutes into this. So it's probably time for us to call it a day. Daylian, inspiring talk. Thank you very much. Thank you for the audience for being with us and challenging us with your question and comments. And our next event is going to be on the 11th of March, 11th of March at 1 o'clock, and we'll be talking about techniques to be more persuasive. So
Yeah,
put it down
everyone,
in your
I'm not
calendar, 11
selling
o'clock.
anything, so find me on LinkedIn. Just there's not too many Dalians in the world, so Daylian. Just link in and we'll stay connected. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Here is the name of Dalian over there. All the very best. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thanks, Professor. See ya.